Hello everyone and welcome back to a special episode of the Bear Bar Tales. It is I, the one bear who liked saying the word who so much that I went and made an owl friend. Speaking of, today we have a bit of a special episode because I'm joined today by my new friend, the one and only Kooh from Kooh's Library. Kooh, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Kooh and I'm the owner of my very own library. I read horror stories just like the ones Bear Bart here does, so I hope that you find yourself at my place soon. I would love to be your host.
Awesome, I am super stoked to be working with someone as cool as Kooh today. Now, before we get started, if you like this type of content and you want to hear more from the Bear Bard, make sure to give the sub button some love. Every sub I get gets me one step closer to uniting all the animals of both the US and Germany. Also make sure to give Kooh a sub, because her channel's actually pretty awesome, though she's a lot more talented than myself. Today's story is titled, How the Monk Made the DM So Uncomfortable They Retired an NPC. The campaign is still ongoing, so I'm keeping this vague, and I'll try to keep this relatively short so that I don't accidentally start going on tangents. The party is larger than I describe here, but I'm just focusing on the relevant players as they arise.
My friend recently decided to start DMing after a few years playing D&D. I join in alongside some other players, which are a mix of the DM's IRL friends and online friends. One of the IRL friends is a DM for them in another game. In this game, they're playing a chaotic neutral monk. This will prove bad enough that I now treat those words as a slightly redder flag than a napkin post-nosebleed.
It's kind of a gnarly way of saying that. Like, who thinks like red, you know that red is? It's just like a nosebleed reg. Resident Evil 8 had just come out at the time the game started, and the DM included a homage to it, with an early quest involving the party getting kidnapped by vampires, one of whom was a honey trap that was part of the monk's backstory. We convinced the vampire to let us out of our cell, and we carve our way out after burning down the house, wherein the vampire joins us as a companion.
Dude, I would be so disappointed if that wasn't just Lady Dimitrescu herself.
Right?
Like, come on. An homage to Resident Evil 8. Yeah, sure. This lady dominated like the first quarter to half a year in 2021. My God.
What was even better is, did you ever see the reaction from the devs? They're just like, we had no idea. She was just a minor character, but they upped her character because people were so obsessed with her.
The monk is very irritable and prone to random acts of violence, alongside needing basic concepts like bathing explained to them due to having spent their formative years in a desert, alongside the player being very forgetful and ignorant. For example, the player had asked nearly 4 times in the past 2 months, asking what time the session starts, despite them being always at the same time.
Additionally, my character is non-binary and used the they-them pronouns, but the player, out of character, used he-him several times due to my voice until the DM made a photo listing all the characters and their pronouns. To be clear, it's just my character that's they-them.
The monk character does not interact much with the party outside of bad one-liners or edgy mid-2000s tier threats of violence against anyone who crosses paths with us. The one side tangent I'll allow myself is to note how one-note his character is, as his personality is largely just angry shout dude. Angry shout. I mean, angry short dude with a Napoleon complex. But he plays it dead straight and keeps going for decapitations with punches. During one session, we were chilling in a lively bar and the player tried 6 separate times to get a bar fight going for no real reason, only succeeding in punching one person out that got healed soon after.
That reminds me of this kid in high school who always tried to start food fights. Like, he'd seen one too many teen comedies and he was always trying to start a food fight, and not once did it ever work.
It's such a common thing in high school movies, I feel like, and it just kind of, somebody like me, who's never seen a high school, obviously, is like, yeah, I feel like that is not quite correct somehow.
He also exclusively did RP, largely just with the vampire instead of the rest of the party.
He just wanted to romance Lady Dimitrescu.
See, yeah, he's just another Dimitrescu simp. That's it. To the point where I don't think he's directly spoken with some of the members of the party, having lengthy and protracted RP scenes with them, talking about little of real import as the player/character, I don't know which, Try to set up a romance plot between the monk and the vampire.
Yeah, there we go. See, exactly. That's what I said.
just hardcore simping. When I read this story the first time, I actually didn't even catch it. Because I never played. I remember that when it came out, but I never played the game, so it didn't even occur to me it was her.
Yeah, me neither. But it occurred to me because I am on Twitter, so she was just everywhere, obviously, and I was simping at that time, so I saw.
You kind of had to be there to get how awkward and protracted it could get. We're talking a full half hour here, as this character, due to living in a desert presumably, had never heard the phrase "brevity is the spirit of wit." Could you imagine that? Imagine just sitting there for a half hour while this person tries to flirt with the DM, essentially.
Oh my god, honestly, it's often, we have that at my table, right? People sometimes flirt with NPCs, but we don't do it for a half fucking hour while everybody just sits there awkwardly and listens to you, because, let's be honest, a lot of D&D players aren't great at flirting. Things come to a head in a session intended to be focused on our artificer, who had worked with the DM to make a backstory regarding their warforged nature. They were going to meet another warforged here that would give them some hints as to their future plotline. The problem is that the session quickly spiraled into a horrifically, mind-numbingly dull set of RP interactions as the monk repeatedly tries to ask the vampire to suck his blood so that she can stay at peak efficiency. It's just the nice way of saying that this was probably intended to be when the monk player would put out the moves and solidify the romance.
God, that's such an awkward line. I need you to suck my blood.
I imagine just this monk player sitting there, staring the DM dead in the eyes and being like, "Suck up my blood, vampire mommy. Suck it."
No blinking, no changing eye contact the entire time. DM gets awkward at the first one, but it's over and done with and we move on. Then the monk asks again, right as the Warforged NPC is introduced. Then he asks again later after the party's fighter wants a chat with the vampire. By this point, I can tell the Artificer player is fuming, and I'm DMing him as this goes on, with him admitting to eventually asking the DM if it would be easier to just do a relevant RP session with the Warforged through Discord text instead of trying to insert it here. The phrase, "bleed me, mom."
I said it. I didn't. Dude, hold the fuck up. I only skimmed over this. I did not read that. I knew.
I must have missed it the first time too.
Oh my god.
Oh man. The phrase "bleed me, mommy" got. God damn it.
You can't say. Okay, hold up. Let me try.
It. Okay, you got. Okay, I'll say the phrase, and then you can say "bleed me, mommy," and then I'll keep going. The phrase
"bleed me, mommy."
God.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
My mouth feels so dirty. Oh my god.
I feel like that's gonna have to be the my thumbnail. My thumbnail is gonna have to say "bleed me, mommy." I think.
Oh my god. I swear, if there's like not comments under my videos starting to say "bleed me, mommy," and I'm just like, oh no.
I appreciated the 110% effort too with that one. That was above and beyond.
Dude, it's coming from the heart. I mean, when I say Lady Dimitrescu, I get it. I get it.
So that's a confirmation. That's actually just Kooh talking right now. That wasn't here reading the story.
What?
Got thrown around a bit privately in mocking jest of the RP scenes.
To put it in perspective how long the conversations could get, around 25 minutes into the first one, I got a call from my mother, and step away from the Discord call for a second. I come back at half an hour into the game. He's still ongoing on his quest to be bled by his big titty goth waifu GF, and it's a quarter to the hour before he stops. He's then back at it half an hour later as if we were in a horrible Groundhog Day loop. 3 separate conversations between the monk and the vampire happen within the first 90 minutes of the session, all of them at least 10 minutes in length.
A 4th attempt here is made later that night, but eventually the DM has the vampire leave and go get blood elsewhere in town. After the session, the DM messages me asking for advice. He's getting aware of how a lot of the party is talking around each other and using the vampire to RP instead of doing it among the party. Not a bad thing alone, but this past session had really eaten into the DM's patience, and he wanted to ask me if he was being fair in having the vampire leave the party instead of sticking around.
I told him he was in the right to do it. Artificer and I had misread the awkwardness as just not wanting to roleplay the scene, especially due to the inherent erotic nature of some depictions of vampire bites. Just imagine the monk player sitting there, and as he's RPing, the DM just says, oh yeah, she bites your neck, sucks your blood out. He's like, oh, and like, I feel the blood leaving my body and rushing to my penis or some shit. It's like...
He goes like 2012 Tumblr with it. As the blood leaves my neck, the remaining blood in my body stands my soldier to attention. I am ready.
You're making it sound way more pathetic than it should be.
Well, it's a fanfic.
Oh my god, imagine we just kind of make like a little section at the end, which is just us reading like a part of this as like a fanfic. Like
oh my god, we make up our own fanfic. That'd be awesome.
Yes, exactly.
As Lady D dreamed of my D.
Oh my god. And next session has the vampire leave the team alongside some players who were missing too many sessions or had asked to leave due to real-life commitments. And most definitely not because of the weird depictions of vampire bite.
I would not be shocked if said vampire only ever returned to the party so that she could hand the monk a restraining order. Especially after, when the DM asked the party what ages our characters were, and the monk said that he felt his character was mentally 12, due to being under the halfling age of maturity, which was like 40. The runback on this was a little funny, as the artificer noted how creepy that made the monk's attempt at romance with the vampire who was well over a century old herself.
Yeah, just, romances between, just don't make them mentally 12. If you say they're like 40 and they're not, like, quite mature yet. Wait, what? Halfling? Sorry, I think I read that wrong. Due to being under the halfling age of matured. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I think everything that guy was
level.
about to say. Jesus Christ, this character is actually like still a child in both ways. That
yeah,
somehow,
yeah, they're like a teenager. Yeah, I mean, didn't say exact age, but
oh no. Okay, I'm just gonna put that aside and move on.
we're just gonna keep trucking along here.
Yeah. A while after this, we get some new players and a cleric and a druid. In the druid's introductory session, we're in the bar that the monk was trying to cause the aforementioned bar fight in. And despite the fighter and my own character asking the druid what her motive for joining the team is, I specifically made my character a socially blunt person, so that new players could be smoothly introduced by having the wizard bluntly ask the token introduction questions. The monk player still has him trying to interrogate the druid, up to and including rolling insight checks to see if they're lying. Some without the DM telling him he could and just assuming he would be allowed to. He also winds up asking this player 3 different times within an hour what their deal is, when 2 different players had already done all this introductory crap.
The cleric themselves, chaotic neutral, winds up blabbing next morning to some guards about the fighter's location. He's a wanted man in this region and is laying low, leading to 2 guards confronting us over breakfast. One gets KO'd, the other gets killed outright, and I quickly have my character drag the bodies into an alleyway ahead of the inevitable "I kill the other guard" line that the monk will say. We bail town. The fighter makes it clear to the cleric not to pull that stunt again, and the cleric player bounces immediately due to feeling really shitty about their character's actions. They're much nicer out of character and tend to usually play nicer characters, but this one is more evil and tends to be encouraged by the monk's chaotic neutral actions, with them having a small panic attack at how hostile everyone had gotten near the end.
For the next session, we have a guest listening in, and a mutual friend of some of us who DMs themselves. We open with the monk repeating much of the fighter's conversation with the cleric, including some really dumb and cringe lines about how he's your new teacher and the lesson is pain. Everyone is internally screaming, or at least the artificer, the DM and myself are, at how he's blatantly retreading ground to satiate his urge to be the real main character of the game. It always gets me. When people think there are main characters in D&D, The main characters are the entire group. It's a game of cooperating. It's just, you can't have the spotlight all to yourself, man. Write a book.
Yeah, that's the hard part. It's like, if you really want to be a main character, that's okay. Play video games. Video games are dope. Like, video games are great. Go play Skyrim. Skyrim, you're the Dragonborn. You're all important. Nothing happens without you. Great, go do that. Or if you have to play a tabletop RPG, go pay a DM. Pay a DM, do a one-on-one session, let him create this world for you, let them create whatever you want, and you could just be, the star of the world, the greatest thing known to man, a BioWare protagonist, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could do that, but just don't join a group with other people who are also trying to do, their own thing. Because that's just kind of messed up. Like go, let people do their thing and don't be a prick.
Don't be a prick. I think that's just a good rule of thumb for the entirety of D&D and tabletop sessions. Cleric player clearly feels like crap due to having this dragged up again, and the Artificer and I share commiserations at yet another series of monk monologues. I think around this point I internally committed to a new rule for my own games of no one is allowed to be chaotic neutral.
Which is always sad, because I've never played chaotic neutral. I don't care for chaotic neutral characters, but I know a couple. I've played with players who've played chaotic neutral and did great. Like, they can be, because I know it's that's actually a pretty common rule I've seen, is no chaotic neutral characters, or neutral evil. And,
or chaotic evil usually too.
Yeah, and so it's kind of sad, because I've met people who've done great with that. They're just not to go back, but they're not a prick about it. They just try to embody that in its true spirit and move on. After session, the guest listener gets to talking with some of us, and we shoot the shit, during which time she reveals that she was taking notes on behalf of the DM to get a second POV on if the monk is a problem player. The short answer? Yes. Surprise, surprise. We then learn that this guy is a DM for the DM in another game, and it becomes clear that this player has difficulty letting go of the driver's seat and his side habit of metagaming. Also potential dice fudging, because it is a little odd that everyone else openly rolls in Roll20, but he rolls IRL without a camera. Yeah, that's an automatic, you can't do that.
So I have a group in which we all, we kind of just switch around on whether we have dice or not. We just all trust each other enough for it that at the most of the time, we all do it privately with our dice at home without a camera, right? Like, either you do that or everybody rolls on Roll20. There shouldn't be anybody in a group who rolls on Roll20, openly, who decides to just, but I have, IRL dice, can I use those instead? That's just an immediate red flag.
Shortly after, in a mutual D&D server, the guest listener reveals some new server-wide rules to improve D&D sessions, a lot of which are blatant responses to the monk's behavior in-game. The ongoing games, at the time, all open with the DM reading over the document with the players so they get where the game is going, alongside the DM getting to make clear their own triggers and what they aren't comfortable doing.
See, that's something that many people actually forget, that the DM can also have their own do's and don'ts of please don't roleplay this or don't do this. It's important to cover that too, considering he's literally the world,
Yeah, I mean, this is just like a why session zeros matter, essentially, to me. This is all stuff that you just got to cover. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they did have a session zero before this. They just didn't cover it. But, other people, different people have different things that they like and don't like. So it's really important, especially, like I said, this sounds just like an online group. I don't know if it's like a West Marches server or something like that. But if you're playing with people that could potentially be strangers, you got to go over this stuff. It's too important not to, especially like here where he's talking about being basically a kid trying to bang a century-old vampire.
Yeah, a few people might be just a little bit uncomfortable with that, my dude.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, basically here, session zeros matter. Do your session zeros, and don't be afraid to be uncomfortable in session zero, and that's going to lead to a better gaming experience going down, further along.
The monk player conveniently happens to skip the session by divine coincidence and dodges the next few tries by the DM to get him to read the new rules, including randomly saying the morning of the session that he had a term paper due on a Saturday. The DM eventually has to tell him he's not welcome to join the game again until they go over the rules, when he conveniently, magically makes time to do so. He hasn't been kicked yet, but the DM's patience with him has worn thin, and the only reason he is still in the game is because the DM hates confrontation and wants to try and make things work. Alongside that, the rest of the IRL friends may leave with him if he gets kicked. I do want to stress that it's otherwise a fantastic game besides this one element, and the GM is doing really well for a first-time DM, but it's unfortunate that the game has this one dark spot in it.
Some general miscellaneous stuff that's just annoying to me while I'm thinking about it. I probably alluded to these elsewhere in the post, but I'm detailing them more here. Despite the game's time only changing once or twice to suit the DM, as he usually starts the game right after getting home from work, the monk is asked 5 different times when the game actually starts.
He brazenly metagames RP encounters up to and including rolling without DM permission, including insight and intimidation checks against other players. And if he's not physically present, he'll usually chime in, "Imagine hearing my character's voice saying something here."
We don't know a thing about his character beyond, I am angry and have lived in a desert, so I have no understanding of social constructs. He randomly revealed that he actually ran in a gang with some of the other players, but this had never been alluded to until he dropped it. Then, after he had his big threat against the cleric, he has this private scene of looking at these tattoos on his wrists and making some proclamation of, I am not like him, or whatever.
I just bet he made that up on the spot to be in the spotlight. And that's it. That's all it was for.
Right. That to me, him saying that's so 2005 protagonist. Like, in a nutshell, that's 2005 protagonist. And part of me loves it because it's nostalgic, but I hate it because it's so dumb.
I assume this would have impact had we learned anything about his backstory. But he didn't tell anyone anything, so we kinda just did the Discord equivalent of looking at each other and shrugging in disinterest. Then we had to, in a recent session, deal with him getting his tattoos removed that ended with him punching out a doctor and leaving them alone in an operating room because he'd burned all his money and couldn't afford the procedure.
That's a Duke Nukem character right there. Probably threatened them afterwards too. I'm gonna rip off your head and shit down your neck.
I'm here to, I was gonna make the chew bubblegum and whatever.
I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of gum.
I'm here to get my tattoo. No, this does not work, no matter how I think about it. Let's skip that.
I'm here to get these tattoos removed, and I don't have money.
Yeah, exactly like that.
He is chronically incapable of listening unless it concerns him and has a dreadful memory. As I mentioned, he misgendered my character several times despite me being careful to use they-them pronouns exclusively when referring to them. And he glossed over the fighter and myself, introducing the druid party member by asking them questions we already asked and gotten answers for.
Even if a conversation has information relayed in the prior session, he'll be sure to repeat a roleplay scene so he can do it, or because he just doesn't remember that this was information already obtained. I'm fairly sure he actually wound up asking the druid about their reason for joining the team in a different session after their introduction.
TLDR, a game I'm in has a that guy so awkward and desperate to romance an NPC that the DM retires the entire character to get him to stop. And he is, in fact, so bad that our server has implemented rules partly inspired by his bad behavior.
Wasn't that a wild ride? My god.
I mean, this time the breakdown's gonna be a little shorter because we covered so much during it, but Jesus, dude, I get people have their things, the people that they like or even obsessed with, again, I lived through the Backstreet Boys era, I get it. But at a certain point, you just have to chill. You have to realize there's people around me, I'm not alone. Let me just move on with this stuff.
I mean, I love how you can just perfectly tell during which time this was, and you will be able to for years, because while the name was not mentioned in the story once, you just know what at least this guy thought that character was based off of. Let's be real.
Oh yeah, that was especially they said Resident Evil 8, so we're okay, we get it. We know what's happening here. You're not slick.
What's going on? But the thing is, they only said vampires, but then the whole thing went on. So I don't think the DM necessarily wanted the vampire to join, especially for this fucking long. And they were just dude, I get that you're thirsting over her, but I need you to just chill it honestly.
Yeah, and I think one thing that they kind of got overlooked here too is like I feel bad for this DM because I totally get it. I tend to be kind of like what you said. Like, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. I don't like conflict. I don't like causing issues. And so this DM's he sounds like he's really trying. I mean, he even brought in a second opinion to try and see like, okay, am I crazy? Is this, but that sucks. Like it sucks that when you're trying to just have fun. I mean, it's a hobby. That's the thing that we kind of forget, especially being in these channels. This is a hobby. This is a fun thing. Like very few people get paid for any of this stuff. So it's supposed to be a fun thing that you're enjoying. And then you're sitting there like, oh, this is terrible. I'm having to fight this stuff. And it sucks, because he's sitting there like, well, I have to worry about if I kick him, then his real life friends are going to leave. Like, in my opinion, like, kick them. Let all of them go. If you're sitting there and you're defending this guy who's just like causing an entire server to have to rethink their rules because they're just used to like good people and they have to deal with that, like anyone that stands behind him, like let him go. Like you'll find more people. That's like nowadays you have a 5e game, you'll find people to play in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm very happy actually that they did bring in that second opinion because as also a very non-confrontational person, it's sometimes good to just, have another standpoint on it. Maybe somebody makes clear to you that, man, this really just is not okay. And also relays that information for you. So, the DM didn't want to start a conflict or anything, neither did the person they brought on. But the person they brought on seemed to be just a very good friend, so they were like, hey, this behavior is not okay, right? So they didn't have to do it in the end. Good for them, good that it was just like done in general, honestly. And yeah, the fact that the monk player just disappears the day after all these rules are being laid down just tells you everything, honestly.
Yeah, especially that's even worse. It's like he was trying to avoid it. Like you can't just like that means he knew the rules already. Like he wouldn't try to avoid them if he hadn't read them and understood. He probably and at that point you have to have there's got to be enough self-awareness to be like, oh, they're talking about me. Like if you're at that point, then like just take it the next step and fucking stop. Maybe.
I just had a thought, man. Like, what if one of the rules was that this like phrase of "bleed me, mommy" cannot be said anymore? It's just like no more "bleed me, mommy."
Oh,
this fucking campaign.
Well, it's even better because he didn't actually say that. Everyone said that making fun of him. So like, it'd be even better to throw that in there because then he's just like, he would know, even though he didn't say it, like he would know it's about him. Just like, no more bleed me, mommy. Oh man. Wait, did I say that out loud?
No more fetishizing vampire bites. Jesus Christ.
They just get a picture of him and just put no more him. And that's it. There's no more rules written.
This is like big ass like X on his character and just like, not this.
Don't be this asshole. That's I would say there you go. That's a nice little fun, wholesome story about basically revisiting our twilight years. But Kooh, I have a real question for you here. And the real question, this is probably more important than anything else that happened in this story. What is your favorite bear and a fun fact about them?
Oh, well, it's probably, you could probably guess, but I love moon bears. There is kind of like, some bears, but look a little bit less derpy, and they're actually crepuscular. So they're active at dawn and dusk, and they often hibernate between November and March and can migrate to higher altitudes in warmer months and descend to lowlands in colder months.
Oh, snap. That's a great bear fact of the week. Even if I'm a little hurt that your favorite bear wasn't the bear bard, but we'll go ahead and get past that.
I thought you were asking about species, man. You're the best bear of them all, obviously.
Aw. Hey y'all, Editor Bearbard here. I was going through this, and when recording this bit, it for some reason was really hard to hear me. And honestly, I didn't do this bit justice, so I wanted to get something a bit more clear. I had an absolute blast hanging out with Kooh. They're a fantastic human being with a really cool channel, so make sure to go check it out. I actually originally had an hour and a half of audio that I had to cut down to this video, and it hurt because the original audio had a lot of great quotes and moments, but I think I'm going to save that kind of conversation for a podcast in the near future. Maybe? Now, back to younger Bearbard. But I think that's going to do it for us today. I want to thank Kooh again for leaving their library and hanging out with me here in the forest. It was a ton of fun hanging out. With that said, if you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to connect with me outside of YouTube, you can connect with me on Discord, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. You can also check out the Bear Bar Tales podcast if that's your sort of thing. I have more episodes planned and in the works that I think you're going to love, potentially one with my guest here today. For now though, this has been the Bear Bard. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and keep on living that bard life.